There's a direct link between what's happening in Fasher, northern Darfur in Sudan, and what's happening in Tanzania. I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes explaining to you about that direct link because it is a matter of life and death. Now, before we get started, I just want to thank you for stopping by today because without you, it is impossible to have this conversation. So thank you very much. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Make this your home. My name is DJ Bwakali, and Africa is my superpower. Welcome to African Awakening, the Pan-African show that is awakening, uniting, and transforming Africa. Today, we are going to travel to El Fasher. El Fasher has been in the news a lot lately for all the wrong reasons. This is one of the most haunting images that I have ever seen. The video will pull at your heart and break it into a million tiny pieces. This video exemplifies the sheer horror of what is going on in El Fasher and the fact that Africa and the world, the international community, has allowed these innocent little children and their mother to be reduced to this horrible, merciless, awful moment. The fact that we live in a world that has allowed that to happen is an indictment on how the world is disconnected from the plight of the people of Sudan, from the plight of the people who are suffering. We are turning the other way when they are brutalized. And today, you need to understand that this moment did not just happen. And therein is where that link between El Fasher and Sudan begins to coalesce, begins to take shape. Now, to understand how this moment even happened, you have to go back to the early 2000s when Omar al-Bashir was already facing an internal rebellion in Sudan. He increasingly began to lean on a militia group known as Janjaweed militia. Omar al-Bashir began to enable this militia, despite the fact that this militia then began to commit genocide in Darfur, and hundreds of thousands were killed. Their only crime, the color of their skin. Melanin was their only crime. And so many were killed. So many were killed purely because they were ethnically African Sudanese. But Omar al-Bashir did not hesitate to empower this militia, to arm this militia. And do you know who was at the helm of this militia? One of the leaders of this militia was a guy known as Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hemeti. He was enabled. They were enabled by Omar al-Bashir. They committed genocide back then. The reason that begins to link to what is going on in Tanzania is this. That institution of presidency that Omar al-Bashir was occupying at the time as president of Sudan can either make or break. It has broken so many lives in Africa. Instead of making progress on this great continent, instead of making peace, many presidents in Africa have actually been the problem here in Africa. When you look at Omar al-Bashir, if he had not enabled the Janjaweed militia for his own survival, there would be no rapid support forces and there would be no Fasher. And this moment, this hopeless, helpless moment that we're looking at now would not have happened. What does that have to do with Tanzania? Just a quick one before I go on. Last year, I wrote a book about historic African leaders like Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, Julius Nyerere, and of course, Ibrahim Traore. There are nearly 100 of them in that book. Many of you have already bought the book, and I'm very grateful for that. If you haven't bought it, please head on to Amazon and purchase your copy. Both physical and digital copies are available. Thanks a lot. You see, Tanzania's president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, just a few hours ago, it was announced that she has won that presidential election with a landslide of 98%. That 32 million people voted for her. What those results are saying is that almost all the voters in Tanzania voted for her, and millions and millions and millions more voted for her than for President John Pombe Magufuli, the late John Pombe Magufuli, 5 years ago. There are so many reasons why these results are completely ridiculous and fake. So here is my point about the linkage between Sudan and Tanzania. The same way Omar al-Bashir completely brutalized the people of Sudan by using his presidency in a manner that was about self-preservation. When a president begins to focus on their own self-preservation, this often leads to fault lines in the society. People start getting divided. The president starts to sow seeds of discord and division that can be completely harmful to the people. For example, if religious issues start to become a dividing factor in Tanzania, then those seeds of complete division and violence will have been planted. You know, these seeds take time to germinate, but it's about the seeds being planted in the first place. If Samia Suluhu Hassan begins to focus on her own self-preservation because now she has to defend extremely flawed elections, she has to be on the defensive all the time, this is going to make it easier for the political forces, including her own, to begin focusing on dividing the people of Tanzania in order to score political points and to realize self-preservation. So it is very critical for us to understand that the unintended consequences of ignoring the people's voice, the unintended consequences of a president who is now focused on self-preservation can be extremely fatal. I'm not claiming even for a minute that Tanzania is going to become like Sudan eventually. But when you look at what an imperial presidency that completely ignores the voice of the people, what it can do to harm these very people, then you have to look very seriously at what is happening in Tanzania. There is no way a president can claim to have won by 98% of the vote. Not even a wildly popular president can win by that margin. Now, they may say that it is because a number of the electorate were deceived to boycott the elections, and so those who voted were already her fans. They may say that. But that does not hold up to the truth. It does not hold up to the truth. The critical thing to understand is that presidents can no longer play games with the people of Africa. Presidents can no longer remain preoccupied with self-preservation and public relations to project an image of a servant of the people when in reality they're exploiters of the people. When we look at Fasher and we look at the thousands of people who have been slaughtered in recent days purely because of the color of their skin, and when we see an Africa and an international community that turned a blind eye to that and allowed it to fester until it reached these horrendous levels, we cannot afford similar indifference in Tanzania and begin waiting for a problem to be there, a problem of similar magnitude or approaching similar magnitude. We cannot wait for that to then take action, because then it is too late for a lot of people. You cannot bring back the people who then die because of violence, because of state-sponsored violence. And so if there's anything that we can take away from Fasher, let it be this. We can no longer avoid an indifference that turns a blind eye when presidents, when leaders are exploiting and harming their own people. Today, it's going to be Fasher. Tomorrow, it's going to be another place in Africa. So the tide must turn. The tide must turn. We must take action. In Fasher, there must be military action from the states that care. And the people of Africa must pressurize their own states to take such action. We are also pressuring other states outside Africa. I am on record telling Russia that you can put your foot where your mouth is and truly stand by Africa by standing by the people of Fasher. Can't you see America is already talking about going into Venezuela? And you cannot even compare what's happening in Venezuela with what's happening in Sudan. If America is already taking such unilateral action, why shouldn't Russia or China or any other strong military power globally, why shouldn't they also take unilateral action in Sudan? We cannot let down the people of Sudan. We cannot continue to let down the people of Sudan. We cannot do so. And similarly, which is why we also cannot afford to turn a blind eye on Tanzania. What has happened there is unacceptable. And the people of Tanzania are saying that they will not accept that. There must be remedial action. There must be remedial action. The voices of the people cannot be ignored. My name is DJ Bwakali, and Africa is my superpower. Let us continue awakening, uniting, and transforming Africa.